This is an SM Media production.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the Betting Ring right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always, and I'm delighted as always to be joined by from the Scottish Daily Mail, Calum McClurkin. Calum, how are we?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. It's been a very busy weekend. We're fully into flat mode.
We are, yeah. We've had the Guineas, softer conditions than ideal. There's quite a lot of rain that's kicking about, which would have been probably perfect for the jump. It's more kind of akin to jumps conditions, isn't it? I mean, the jumps boys all season long have kind of been complaining about maybe not quite enough rain, and then all of a sudden when the flat classics start, it's raining, and all of the great British weather of things. But yeah, Chester now, so I think you're kind of moving on from the Guineas to look towards Derby clues here in Britain.
Yep, absolutely. We're going to preview obviously the Chester Festival later on, and we'll obviously take a recap in the Guineas. Couple of big bits of news from the jump world, though. The jump world never stops. First of all, Princess Zoe is no longer with Tony Mullins. She has left his yard. The owner, Paddy Kehoe, has taken the Group 1 winning mare out of Tony Mullins' care. There's conflicting stories of what this is about. If you speak to Tony Mullins, it's about potentially going for the Galway hurdle. If you speak to Paddy Kehoe, it's down to the recent health issues. This has been ugly for a while. I don't think a lot of people are surprised that this has happened, but it's very unfortunate for all parties.
Yeah, and Tony Mullins thought that she was going to stud when leaving his yard, and he's going elsewhere to race. It's all a bit unsightly, isn't it? Being played out in this public domain. Normally, owners and trainers keep things private and then announce what's going to happen. It's going to spilled over into Twitter, and it's becoming a bit of an unsightly row. Yeah, I think Tony Mullins is accepting of the situation. I think most people will have more sympathy with the trainer than the owner in this one. Given what she's had in her career, it's probably the trainer that's kind of made her really that universally popular and kind of dancing every dance that she's been in, and then going over jumps and deciding to go for that as well. So yeah, we don't know about the health issues in the background, if there are any, or how serious they are. It's led the owner to move things. Just have to wait and see how it really kind of all pans out. But on a future career, because it's an interesting horse going for next season, particularly jumping wise. I think in the open company, I think going out and trip would help her.
I think as well, if you get the vibe like I have, like I don't think the trainers ever saw her as a jump horse, whereas the owner seems to very much be wanting to go down that route, because there's been talk a while that she could potentially be going over hurdles, but Tony's always kind of programmed her to go for kind of staying flat distances. It's always struck to me that the trainer kind of didn't want to go down the hurdle route.
No, and surprising that the owner kind of does as well, because when you get a Group 1 winning mare, it becomes very valuable straight away, and even sending them over jumps is a notable risk. I mean, there was talk about it's slightly different, but we talk about Honeysuckle going over fences. I mean, to do that to like a Grade 1 winning like champion hurdler all the time wouldn't be ideal for a mare of such value. Yeah, the expanding mares program gives you an opportunity to race these horses now. And it makes them even more valuable in the breeding operation later down the line. So yeah, it was a bit of a risk going jump wise, but the trainer's got to side with the owner, and the owner pays the bills ultimately at the end of the day, and they are instructed by the owner for how their campaign. So that's the nature of it, and I'm pretty sure Tony Mullins will move on quite quickly from it anyway.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot of talk that Princess Zoe will be heading to Paul Nolan.
Interesting. Yeah, again, he's a very capable trainer, so we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, the horse will still race to probably a decent level anyway. I would think with the yard switch, she seems pretty uncomplicated. She travelled over to France. She's travelled everywhere. So yeah, I think whoever trains her next will find the key to her quite quickly.
We'll move into the second big story. Leading jump owner Max McNeil has split from retained jockey Adrian Heskin and racing manager Ian Turner. This is down to apparently a rationalisation of his operation. He's obviously had some good horses, Max McNeil, the likes of the World's End, 3 through 5, obviously 3-card Bragger, a good chance this year at Cheltenham. What do you think of this? I know you weren't mad keen on Adrian Heskin maybe 2 months ago, but right now it's big news actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature of the world we live in terms of Max McNeil. This is a cost-cutting exercise. He is a business owner, and he's pointing out all these economic factors. It means that he's got to cut his cloth with his hobby. If you're going to cut your 30 horses to about 20, you don't really need a retained rider or a racing manager really that much for that, because they're spread across all different yards as well. So there has been a point made by some trainers that they would rather use their retained jockeys at the stable rather than the retained rider for ownership. But I mean, if you're a retained rider, normally you're like a really kind of big kind of operation, really. Having 20, 30 horses, it didn't make much financial sense and practical sense going forward for Max McNeil. So yeah, I did point out a couple of bad rides from Adrian Heskin, in my opinion, on the Cheltenham Festival. I saw one at Ayr that I wasn't overly keen on either, to be honest. But he's maybe lost a bit of confidence as well. I'm sure he'll pick up because he is a good rider on his day. I mean, seasons before that, he was absolutely fine. Maybe like being in pillar to post, maybe this has been kind of hanging over him a little bit as well. The uncertainty about his future in that operation. Maybe you're probably aware of things scaling down when that's going to happen, so that might have affected his performance. But I mean, I hope he gets a fresh start somewhere else because he's too talented not to. Hopefully his confidence will come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously been a busy weekend in the jump world, obviously with some big news. But we'll move into the first classics of the season. Let's talk the Guineas Festival. We'll start with the 2,000 guineas on Saturday, Coronation Day. It was obviously a very exciting day as a whole, but to see Frankie Dettori winning the Guineas in his final year on Chaldine, there's a lot to get to with this race. But first of all, the winner, brilliant story.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, his farewell tour, isn't it? And he's got a Guineas on the board, and the money was spot on beforehand. There was a rush into overtook Little Big Bear for second favouritism very quickly in the morning when the rain started to come, and then 7-2, well backed. He was drawn up away from the main principles, really, but that wasn't a problem. The ground was a bit of a mess, to be honest, all weekend for a Guineas level. It was just kind of, there was no bias at all. It was kind of, it was rain on top of water ground, which is not what you want to see in a classic weekend. But I mean, Chaldine looked the winner for quite some time. He broke on terms. He ran his race, travelled well into it, and quickened away nicely. Didn't really need any kind of company either. So he's probably ran his due horse form there, in my opinion. Whether he can back that up at Royal Ascot, yeah, I think it'll be hard to beat, but I don't think he's a complete world beater in a 2,000 guineas, which I wasn't overly impressed with collectively.
Speaking of this kind of second and third, obviously you had a wee bit in Royal Scotsman each way. I thought it was really unlucky, maybe not to get closer, but High Royale, 125 to 1 second place. Ocean Murphy, we'll talk about him again later on, but really good run.
Yeah, Kevin Ryan said this horse would do himself justice, and he did. But again, I mean, it's the ground in a forward ride at Newmarket from being in the right place. I think that's what kind of developed, and not a lot getting at all off the pace all week, really.
Yeah.
At Newmarket off that ground, the rolling mile, they just keep rolling on, hit the dip, and then they keep galloping away from you. It's quite hard to overhaul horses there when the ground turns like that, and it's gluey, sticky, and testing, and hard to get past. But yeah, it was a good run, and I wouldn't be surprised, if he kept holding his form. Maybe it's slightly Group 2, Group 3 level, but it was certainly a solid run. Royal Scotsman was unlucky at the start. He get lit up keen early on, racing away from where it largely unfolded. Now he could turn the tables at the St James's Palace at Royal Ascot on better ground. There's obviously talent there, but I mean, he's not won 5 of his last 7 races. He's always been a bit fresh. I just wonder if he's just a bit a bit vulnerable to finish in the way that he kind of races.
The two Aidan O'Brien runners that obviously Auguste Rodin was very well thought of in the market, down to 13 to 8, was even talk of going for the Triple Crown, obviously finished 12th. I don't know. I've kind of watched the race back a couple of times. First time I thought that getting hampered the way he did kind of killed his chances, which I can see that, but then just he never travelled at all. I don't think he would get anywhere close, regardless of the. I just thought he weakened very easily for me.
He was one of those that just didn't handle it, and I think he could comfortably throw it out. And there's several that you can put down to that. Yeah, slow start away again, bad position, probably worst position on the track as well, and he's not quickened, has he? He's probably more of a stamina-based horse anyway, further down the line. But yeah, it's a big dent to his reputation anyway, even if you are inclined to throw out the form. Little Big Bear, he did have at least some excuses, coming back lame and the ground and the trip being completely unsuitable for him, to be honest. So I'll give him hope. Ian O'Brien said his preparation for the whole weekend was out of sync because he had to come a day earlier to the coronation thing, which for a meticulous planner like him he wouldn't have liked. And neither of them had a run under their belt, so on that ground you're going to get found out when that happens.
What do you think of Auguste Rodin? 7-1 now for the Derby. You would need to probably have a lot of trust to back him for that. Do you think they will stick with that plan?
I think they'll have to. I mean, when you come out and say you're a good horse, I mean, Coolmore won't shirk away from anything. I think that's how they'll campaign him, and they'll definitely try and look to get him there. Whether you want to see him beforehand, I don't know. He might have to take a long time to recover. He might not. But 7-8-1 after that is short, because he did show absolutely nothing there. Even if you're inclined to kind of throw it out, but you're going to get all these trials now, starting with Chester, then into Lingfield on Saturday, which might be called off because of the rain already. The Derby trial, Jessica Carrington's one looked okay. You'd be more looking at these kind of trials now rather than the Guineas going forward. I thought Roger Varian's horse Sakir might be interesting coming down and trip, because at least he kind of showed that he can quicken, and then his stamina obviously ran dry in that kind of area. But yeah, it was full of non-stayers and full of horses that didn't handle the ground, and the form of that race down the line, while it will probably throw up some decent horses, I think it's open to a lot of question.
Ed Nelson Saturday at Newmarket, you quite liked?
And not particularly. Over the course of the week, I mean, ADR was good. Hurricane Lane was good when he come back. And the Sunday, I quite liked the Gosling filly that won Running Line. That was quite impressive. It'd be interesting if they try and get up and trip with her in the Oaks.
What about must keep beating Native Trail?
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I mean, in the renewed Sandown race, I actually liked Mutasabic for the race at Sandown. I was a bit less inclined here because I thought Native Trail would probably just win this, but he needed it, and Mutasabic was keen, fresh, and again just made all, which tended to happen a little bit. He's a good horse, and he's probably a Group 2 level horse, but he's inclined to go for a Lockins or a Queen Anne now after that, because that was quite impressive. There's no standout miler. I mean, Bides away, Palace Piers away, and he's 5 that the classic generation might have a few questions to answer. So yeah, he definitely be of interest. Top mile races.
Absolutely. We'll move into the 1,000 Guineas on Sunday, which was won by Moj for Oisin Murphy and Godolphin. 1/2 a length over to hot favourite Tahira for Dermot Weld. They finished 8 lengths clear of the field. 2 really good fillies just going at one another, and Murphy, I thought the ride here was absolutely sublime. I really did. It
was winning the race. Obviously had a pipe opener in Dubai, and that probably helped in the conditioning aspect to beat Tahira. I always thought this filly was a talented 2-year-old, but really small, and I didn't think she'd have the scope to kind of progress it. She did, but in the paddock 5 minutes before the off, she looked a different animal. It was quite striking difference in how much she had actually strengthened up. And the Dubai run was obviously very beneficial to her. And she's just very tough again in front of her. Attitude's excellent, and the ride, of course, was terrific. Arguably a bit of interference that far out. But I mean, to hear us travel there, tanked into it, and has had every chance to go by, and she's not been able to. And Maud has gone on again at the line. So yeah, when the two meet again together, you'd expect to hear with normal improvement to maybe turn the form around. But Maud is still going to be a tough nut to crack, and those two fellas are probably as good as Chaldine anyway.
Where do you think we'll see them both next?
It could renew rivalry in the Irish Guineas. There's enough of a time gap between that. Interesting to see how they both come out the race. Yeah, I would think there, and then maybe Goodwood, but the way Dermot Will campaigns suggest that they might not come across to Britain that often. He always points out that this race in early May is a bit early for his kind of string as well. So yeah, I expect them to take each other on again, the Irish Guineas, because they're that far clear. It's hard to see anything else really get into it. Maybe Ian O'Brien's got a better one at home, more of a miler. Thought Meditate Ranald Kane 6th. Wouldn't have liked that ground. Trip was maybe a bit doubtful as well. I wouldn't give up on her down the line either.
We'll move into, we've got a busy festival coming up this week. We've got the Chester May Festival. We'll start today, obviously Wednesday. This will probably be out just after the racing's happened. But we'll start two big trials today. The Chester Oaks, two hot favourites today. Save the Last Dance in the first one for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore. 8-13, you've got Ashtanga at 13-2 for Oisin Murphy in the Maids. 10-1, there's the door. 11-1 Bar. The favourite here, do you like her?
She should win this. Her Leopardstown form has been boosted twice over. Yeah, I'd expect her to outclass these. I mean, Ian O'Brien's got a terrific record in this. This yard not in firing form, but Ryan Moore rides this track wonderfully. And I think she's the best of these, to be honest. I would expect her to win, and I'd expect her to be in the Oaks picture after this. Yeah,
I think she should win. I wouldn't go against Ashtanga either. Maybe potentially given her a good race. I think I liked her performance at Nottingham. She beat a good horse. I think the improvements there to move forward up and trip. I think she's got a good chance here. We'll move into the Chester Vase. A rest for the Tory and the Gosdens at 8-11. Adelaide River 3-1 for O'Brien and Moore. 13-2 Hydranius for Johnson. 16-1 Bar. Again, another favourite. The Tory obviously has already beat Adelaide River in France. You see that but staying the same here?
Well, by 6 lengths in the criterium to seclude. I mean, you'd expect so. It was given a terrific ride that day. I mean, it did well to get to only beaten by a head there. Yeah, I mean, it's just whether he's going to be ready for this, because I mean, he's already very prominent in the Derby shake-up. You'd think maybe Ian O'Brien's got a couple better than Adelaide River, but the extra trip here on rain-softened ground might play into the strengths of the Coolmore horse. You've got the Johnson horse that's ran in the Blue Ribbon Trial that's already race fit, so there's likely to be a true gallop here, and if you want to get the favourite beaten, you'd probably have to try and do it on stamina grounds and fitness grounds. He should have the class to still win this. He sets the standard, but it's whether they'll fitness and trust, and I think you'd be kind of monitoring the market late on to see if there is any kind of fitness doubts, seeing if there's any drifting or steaming in.
Anything else on Wednesday you fancy? I particularly quite like Ziggy's Phoenix in the first. I think the win on soft ground on second start would be really good. Ryan Moore on board. Obviously, you've mentioned he's particularly good round Chester. I think cracking chance in this race. Anything else catching your eye for the Wednesday?
Quite like the Easterby horse in the 345 to Seaver at 14-1 each way. From a decent draw. I mean, draw's normally pretty significant around Chester with that rail and how tight it is. So, and they tend to do well there. And Ciantabra in the second race for Declan Carroll. I think they're good attack and draw there. I think it's only like 4-1. They'd probably be my best two bets in these, because I mean the main event really are kind of short price favourites that you'd expect to go in, but in this stage of the season over a track like Chester as well, which some horses also just don't simply handle. You'd be a bit you wouldn't be that inclined to kind of dive in at horses that are 4-7 8 to 11 kind of mark. You just kind of happily kind of sit back and watch.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move into Thursday. We've got a couple of good races as well. We've got the Boodles D Stakes for Alder for the Donica O'Brien 9-4. Local Dynasty 4-1 for William Buick. Hadrenis is entered here as his passenger. San Antonio in there as well at 5-1. This could be a nice wee race, actually.
Yeah, again, there's going to be a lot of rain overnight, I think. So this could be like whatever horse handles the conditions. And you'd be looking at Alder again, sets standard on ratings, along with Hadrenis, who's running today anyway. So I'd imagine he'd be pulled out. Local Dynasty off track 206 days. Again, fitness doubts are going to be kind of exposed even more so maybe on Thursday than they are today. So you'll be looking at him. I thought Passenger was really impressive in his debut in the Wood Ditton. I think he's a classy horse. I think if he can handle the ground, I'd probably sign at him at the prices.
Yeah, I think Passenger as well if he can handle the ground. I quite like the O'Brien horse, San Antonio. Just don't know if he's going to handle the ground. Obviously, it was quite good in all weather. Beat another O'Brien horse the last time out, so we're keen to see if he can live up to the ground. Ormond Stakes, Hamish is 15-8 favourite for William Haggis. Changing of the guard 3-1. You've got Hold Harovian, Israr as well. Another nice race. Hamish, obviously, 201 days. Markland on board. Has form in heavy ground, was obviously second in the St Simon behind at Newbury last October. Fancy him here?
He won this a year ago as well.
Yeah.
Likes the track. He is now 7. The trainer's not in excellent form for what he is, and they normally kind of come on for the run, but he does go well fresh. Changing the guard, he's coming back from like 328 days off. I mean, he has had a little setback, but he did bolt up in Chester last year from
beat New London. That's right. Yeah,
New London, who went off favourite for the St Leger. So I mean, he does merit respect. So it's hard to see beyond those two. Israel does have some smart form in behind it. He would have a bit to find at this level, but he will handle the ground. So I mean, all the conditions here are in the favour of the top 3. And I'm finding it very hard to split. I mean, on ratings, and prices, maybe Hamish should be a bit shorter than 2-1. Again, he's 7. You're not kind of sure, but he is lightly race enough for the age kind of thing, not to really be an issue. So changing the guard might just need this after such a longer absence. He still does tend to go well fresh anyway, but he has been off for a wee while, and that 3-year-old form might not be the best coming into open company. So I mean, I would probably side with Hamish here.
It's going to be an interesting race as well. Ed Nelson the Thursday. I quite like Vetiver for Cheveley Park and Oisin Murphy on the 205. Andrew Baldwin's trainer. Nice horse. Obviously has good form. Won a few weeks ago and good to soft. Really easy performance. Won by 5.5 lengths. Could be a good one.
Could well be. Novello in the sprint and the opener at 8-1 each way might not be bad. I mean, he's completely lost his form, but I mean, over course and distance, he's normally quite good. Interesting that they've booked Franny Norton, who's the devoted king of Chester, according to in everyone's mind. So that's an interesting jockey book. It indicates that they might expect a big run. He's plummeted to a decent mark of 86. He could be capitalising that here. Particularly when ground, trip and rider are very important around Chester. So him is still at an each way price when the flat 8 are still there. Isn't bad at 8-1.
We'll move into Friday. We don't have prices for this, but the Irish Huxley Stakes, the Group 2, over 1 mile, 2.5. Point Lonsdale has been declared as his poker face. You've got Royal Champion, Haggis, the Haggis horse, Lafayette, Fox's Tails. Would you like here?
I like Point Lonsdale. I mean, his return was quite impressive, over heavy ground, over a longer trip, because he looked kind of like a small miler when we were talking about the Guineas last year. This ground would be a negative for me for Fox's Tails. Muchtabah is talented. He's dangerous. They thought he was kind of an absolute stick-on Lincoln horse, but I mean, he could be kind of an older kind of upcomer, like totally progressive that William Haggis kind of specialises in. He'd be the big danger for me. but I would expect Point Lonsdale to win this because he is beginning to fulfil his potential there. And it's a popular route that Ian O'Brien's taken for this kind of like slight step into Group 2, and then they can really more than handle their own Group 1 company later down the line. And he's race fit, so Point Lonsdale probably.
Brilliant. We'll move into we've got the Chester Cup, obviously over 2 mile, 2.5. A couple of jump horses in here that catch your eye straight away. The market is led by Falcon A. Obviously, was it quite a good jumps campaign this year? Obviously, has had a few interesting. Was second behind Tax for Max a wee while ago. What do you think? Ryan Moore on board. There's a few jump horses in here that catch your eye. Metier, Tritonic. There's a few, just Yukon Glen, obviously, for Jim Goldie's entered as well. Couple of interesting runners here.
Yeah, 91 the field. I mean, Metier would be of the most interest to me at this point.
On
given
the ground,
given that the ground's turning heavy. I mean, even this stamina test might be a stretch for him. But in Musselbury shape really well. Didn't quite have the pace over 1 mile 6 in the Queen Vaz when second. The Wise Eagle has been tried in group company since. So yeah, I think there's still more mileage in his mark 97. He's the one that I'm drawn to straight away on the ground anyway.
Do you know what was second in this last year?
I can't remember that.
It was Coltrane.
Coltrane was second. Yeah, I mean, there's top handicappers can come. I mean, Falcon 8's got a big week, but it's a good record here. It's a for the tight corky nature of the track. It is a very good kind of handicap prize, and it's a good start because you can kind of see where you're going, kind of Royal Ascot wise down the line, because quite a lot of these will more than good enough to turn up.
Yeah, Newton Abbott's been abandoned as well. Obviously, that was meant to be on ITV as well, so not going to be taking place today. Some other kind of interesting meetings over the weekend. Like Haydoc's got the kind of mixed meeting. You've got Ascot. You've got a few kind of interesting clues this weekend. You got Hamilton, the Sunday series. It's a busy week, a busy weekend as well.
Yeah, it's busy in the Victoria Cup at Ascot's usually quite good as well. So yeah, there's plenty of options and plenty to get your teeth into down the line anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a busy few weeks. Obviously, we're going to be back for the Epsom Derby. We've got a wee break up until then, so we've best get studying for the Derby.
Yeah, you're getting all the trials coming in, so yeah, there'll be a pecking order there. Usually something comes out the Guineas that you think, well, that could be a kind of Derby. I didn't see much, to be honest. Summer with the Oaks, again, not much there. So the Derby trials Derby and Oaks trials might take even more significance than normal. We've got the Lingfield Derby trial Saturday. That's under threat due to the weather. So we've had the Irish one at Leopardstown. There'll be others as well. So yeah, even something might come through, even lesser kind of handicap ranks. You never know at this point. Definitely interesting to see what happens.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap the show for this week, Calum. It's been an absolute pleasure. Best of luck this week and enjoy the run up to the Derby.
Yep, thanks again. You too.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Thanks very much, folks. We'll see you soon. Cheers.